So welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for October the 2nd, 2024. We will follow our standard agenda as was posted in the issue that was created within the TC repo, which was issue 1626. So as we get started, are there any announcements that people would like to share? Okay, if not, then okay, let's move on to reminders. So again, if you see anybody doing great work across the collaborator base, remember to nominate them for the contributor spotlight. In terms of CPC and board meeting updates, I don't think we have either of our reps, so I'm just going to say no updates. No updates this week, unless anybody has something to add. And in which case we can move on to the issues that were tagged for the agenda. And we're going to start with the number Node.js node 55181, which is potential delay in Mac OS infrastructure. So we have a couple guests, Ryan and Ulysses. I don't know if you two want to sort of introduce the challenges, and then we can start to discuss the different options and go from there.
Ulysses,
Sure.
yeah.
Oh, but yeah, as you wish. Yeah, I can do a fast introduction, just to keep an overview so everybody's on the same page, because this has been a long discussion for a while. So basically, the thing is, in the past, we have a macOS infrastructure that we use for testing Node.js commits, basically, other things, and as well to do the releases later on. Most significant part of that is like signing process, which we ran a bit late last year. And basically that's the part that we have some issues right now. So in the past we have different providers. Those are not part anymore, and we have a single provider right now, which is Mac Stadium. We take a decision to remake this infrastructure piece into ephemeral nodes, basically, just to avoid all the historical problems that most of you already suffer in terms of machine free space and stuff like that. So we are kind of transitioning from one legacy system to the new system. So one of the challenges that we have right now is like, no, as far as we understood, Node.js 23 will introduce some new requirements on the macOS infrastructure in terms of minimal version of Xcode in order to compile and properly sign this new version of Node, which has not been the challenge for the other release lines that we have currently, right? So we have the idea to have this new infrastructure like kind of ready 1 week before the release of Node.js 23, so the releases actually have the time to, test this around and just build the same approach as we did for the CI in a regular release. Currently, we probably don't meet that deadline because we need to like provide new nodes to the new cluster, and also we are like changing the way how we build these ephemeral machines, so that will require some tweaks and stuff, and we need to check that against the CI running trial and error kind of things and patching and so on, right? So probably will not have that this week and probably not by the time of the release. So the big challenge for us is if we are not able to compile Node 23 in the existing infrastructure, then we have an issue because we will not be able to like build the binaries and then sign the binaries probably. So there are like two pieces here. One is like testing the binaries and the other one is like signing the binaries, right? So more or less this is the overview. I'm not sure if I missed something, Ryan, but yeah, that's like a high level thing.
Yeah, that covers everything that I understand.
Okay, good. So yeah, the heads up what was more or less like in case that we are not capable of compiling Node.js 23 on the existing infrastructure, then probably we won't be able to ship Node.js 23 with macOS or just delay Node 23. I don't know. So that's why we want to bring like the heads up in terms of from the build point of view, we have some challenges here, and the idea was to bring the topic and discuss it openly.
Okay, so I guess like if I understand the like one of our steps is we need to figure out, can we compile 23 on the existing infrastructure, right? Because if that actually turns out to be okay, Ryan recently got that back in place. So that tells us if we do have a challenge or not. That's kind of the first step. I guess the second step is it would be good. We might want to come to a decision, or like a, at least figure out how we come to a decision that says like, okay, if we can't, if it turns out that no, like the new version of V8 or whatever needs the new infrastructure, then what do we do, right? Richard, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I'll point out we have some precedent. I think it was Node 18 went out, 18.0.0 went out without 32-bit Windows support. And that was 2 or 3 Semver minors before we added that back into Node 18. So we do have some precedent in terms of releasing like the major without with a platform missing. So that is an option. I guess the main problem with like delaying is I don't know if we actually have a firm. Yes, if we delayed it for 3 days, 4 days, a week, 2 weeks, what is the time frame that we were proposing for delaying? Because there is some sequencing involved in terms of the Semver Major and the foundation and other companies that are basing plans around Semver Major announcements. So it's not that we can't delay it, but I think we want a really good reason to delay it, and preferably an actual firm indication of, well, how long is this delay? If we can't indefinitely delay, and like I said, we do have some precedent of going out with a platform. With one of the platforms not there. It is a tier 1 platform, but it is what it is. If we're having challenges. So as an FYI, I have just resumed the CI for the V8 13.0 update PR, so we'll find out in a couple of hours or sooner if the macOS builds that we've just recently turned back on still work on that. We do know that the V8 Canary builds don't build on the existing Mac infrastructure, so there is going to be a cutoff at some point. We just don't know if that cutoff is going to be within the Node 23 timeframe, or if it's something that's coming down further down the line, because I don't know what the gap is between V8 13.0 and V8 Canary. So yeah, we'll try and figure that one out. But in terms of mitigation, if it turns out that we can't, I would be soft leaning to, well, we go out on the platforms we can provide, and macOS will have to come whenever we're ready for it.
One thing that I would mention is that some of our blockers are on the vendor giving us extra nodes to be able to like flesh out the actual infrastructure that's in place. That's a requirement for having enough resources to be able to ongoing test macOS. But with the resources we have now, we could do ad hoc builds and run it through and sign it through without necessarily, having all of the rest of the testing infrastructure relying on it, but to be able to do the release.
Yeah, we could possibly cater for that and build. I think one option would be to we've got like a Groovy script that decides what platforms run on what versions of Node, and we could potentially actually, I'm trying to think whether we could do this. I was going to say we could potentially not run it on main, but only run it on the release branches. But up until the point we actually cut the release branch for 23, main in 23 will have the same Node version. So I don't think we could actually make that distinction in the existing script.
How much
the existing script is based on the Node version. How much?
What's the activity balance between what's happening on main versus what's happening on other versions?
Oh, main is a lot more. Every PR that's open to Node
okay.
that we request a CI on is basically almost all the PRs to Node are the great majority of PRs to Node are for main, and PRs for the other release lines are only necessary if like things can't be. The project has a policy of not landing stuff directly on the releases unless it's something specific to that release. So the preference is to land things on main and then cherry pick or backport through. The release working group has a defined process of how things flow back through the release lines. So most stuff will be against main.
Got it.
So Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong. That's good to keep in mind, but I don't think we're ready yet to do like a one-time run even. Like if we said, hey, we want to ship today, we'll do a one-time run with the existing, nodes. Is that possible today, or is that still something that takes some work before we're ready to do?
I think Ulysses would have more of an answer on this one.
Yeah, even if we try to follow these paths, with mostly it's going to be like a manual process, kind of we just say run it, right? Basically. For testing, I think we are kind of there. Like at least I got some green passing on, I don't know, some commits, basically. So in terms of dependencies, so we are there. But for the releases, when last time we tried, because we have like a clone pipelines, as trying to do our things there before we move it, like a kind of a staging. I didn't succeed, and basically there's like some work to do in the templates. That's also worth mentioning. Like in the past, just to give you the context, we provision the machines because they are not ephemeral using Ansible. So we connect the machines, install dependencies like I don't know, Python, version of support for CLang, and all these kind of things, right? And right now with ephemeral machines, we define that in templates, dynamic templates. So we are in the process of trying to figure out if they are passing or not and fixing those scripts and try to see how that works. So it's a different process. For the release, I got some weird problems. So probably we will need some time to fix those, like in terms of different namespaces, things like that, right? So there is like some work on research. Also, that is why it's hard for us to do like an estimation if we want to
Yeah.
go for the path of delaying 23 until that is ready. That might not be the good case. Especially if we have this precedent on Windows already on 18. I think the best solution in terms of reducing pressure and being more stable and more predictable for the end users, maybe will be what Richard proposes, which is basically like just skip macOS in the worst scenario until we are ready in terms of the infra, and then we can just include it, right? So that's going to be like the worst scenario and the best mitigation, I think.
So yeah, I would lean towards let's not delay the LTS because like Richard said, there's lots of things that sort of line up on that, and we do have the precedents. Just wondering from everybody else who's here, are there concerns, thoughts, like in terms of, is shipping without Mac OS something that people would be okay with? Obviously not ideal. So. I guess any objections to doing that? I don't hear any strong. Nobody's jumping in quite yet, so any objections to that?
No objections here.
I guess any other questions from people? Like if that's kind of our plan to say like, okay, we'll figure out like Richard's already kicked off. It's like if it can run on the old infrastructure, that's great. But if that doesn't pan out, then the plan is to ship 23. Obviously, need to consult the release working group because that's really their call in the end. But like from this discussion, it sounds like people wouldn't have a problem with let's ship on time, but not include Mac, and then we'll ship that in a point release, hopefully, as soon as we can afterwards.
I do have one question. If for some reason, we decide, okay, we're going to delay Mac, but then we get the new infrastructure up, say, a day or two before the release, do we change plans and say, well, hey, the new infrastructure seems to be working, we can try this? Or do we
I
commit to
think I'd defer
delaying?
that to the releasers, right? Like if the releasers are like, yeah, I'm comfortable trying that out, then I think we could let them make the decision of like, yeah, let's do it. Or if they're like, it's too late in the flow, we've, run all the testing and stuff, prefer to wait to the point release. I think it would be, I defer to them to say like, yeah, let's just ship without it and then do a point release the next week, for example, or try and get it in. Like, I think that's a call we could easily say is best made by whoever's actually doing the release.
Do we know who is going to do the release?
There's an issue open in the release
Me.
repo.
I will do that.
Okay, yeah, because I think like maybe we can do like a small Slack the DM group kind of thing, right? And coordinate a little bit there, more like in real time between all of us, like in terms of releases and build on this issue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I should be uh thinking branches and creating release candidate proposals at the end of this week or at the beginning of the next one.
Okay,
Wow.
that's good.
Can you hear me? I just had a question for Rafael. Do you have any preference, given that you're the one who probably gonna be pushing all those buttons?
Preference for what? Sorry.
For the possible solutions here, either
Oh.
delaying the release or shipping without Mac OS?
I wouldn't ship it without macOS, to be honest. I would try the one-time build, if possible, just for the production binaries. But I need to take a look on the issue because, to be honest, I'm focused on other things now.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So I guess like any other questions from people, it sounds like, we have kind of a direction, a few things to figure out. And if we're lucky, it'll work out with using the old infrastructure. If not, like even as Raphael said, maybe, if there's possibility of using the new infrastructure, we can figure that out. And if not, then, we've got the nobody objecting at least to this shipping without it. Okay, well, if there's no other questions or discussion on that one, many thanks for coming to the meeting, Ulysses and Ryan, and we'll move on to the next issue. Thanks. Okay, the next issue was module support CGS unwrap default interrupt. The vote's complete. I think there's not necessarily anything to discuss other than how to. It was obviously not closed by the time the issue was generated. I'm not quite sure if it's been closed because I think there were some challenges.
The perks landed, so I think we can skip that one.
Okay, so it's landed and so vote's complete. We are landed. Great. Okay. The next one is the Node.js CPC or TSC Node CPC rep 1627. I just created that because it's the yearly sort of nomination election time on the CPC side. They've combined like the different levels of the different types, like there's impact members, there's members representing the regular members and so forth. Anyway, the existing members will need to nominate themselves. I just thought it would be good that the TSC be aware of that. And I asked in the issue to make sure our current reps are willing to continue. So really just an awareness on that one. And, I think, the default is hopefully our current reps can just continue and we'll go from there. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, if not, we can move on to the next one, which is module unflagged -- experimental require module. I think Joy, you might have added that one if you want to lead the discussion.
Yeah, I have a separate tentative backboard progress. I'll paste it into the chat. Where I did some research into the regression. So I think for backboarding to 22, will at least my recommendation would be to add at least 2 more additions. One is we'll need to add a way to feature detect this because some packages are trying to like feature detect by try require ESM catch, and at least for the use cases in Yarn that I found, they probably would need something like a way to feature detect this before to avoid triggering the experimental warning. The other regressions that I found are all related to the experimental warning. So my recommendation would be to disable the warning for anything coming out of no modules. And then it will still require the packages to update their tests because then you're not running tests from no modules. But at least for users, they're not going to see like their CLI output being broken by a additional warning. I think with those, it should probably be safe to just backport this to 22. There are, I think maybe there are some more differences in 20 that I haven't really looked into yet. But at least that's what I found for 22. And I think those stuff are pretty small patches that can be landed like in a matter of week. So I'm not sure if that's going to make it to the 22 LTS cutoff.
It's Semver minor though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like adding process stuff features that require module, and also like disable the warning if the is coming from no modules. And it's only targeting the 22 branch, while the feature thing is targeting both. But yeah, the warning thing is probably only necessary for 22. For 23, we can keep it so that people can find the places to update. And for 24, we'll probably just like remove the warning because it will probably be stable back then. So yeah, that's what I've found
I
so far.
think
Not sure if others are agree. Sorry.
I think we won't have a problem merging or landing that on 22 even after becoming LTS. I think we could do the original plan, which is land on 23, see if we get feedbacks or some clear issues. Otherwise, we wait 2 weeks and then land on 22 to get a broader feedback.
Yeah, I think that would also work, but I think Matteo kind of commented that it would be better to get it out before LTS promotion. I my my impression of all this is that it's probably fine in terms of like if we're going to break it, it doesn't really matter all that much whether it's like LTS like right at the version where it became LTS or like maybe one more like that small gap seems okay. Because it's like a silver minor ultimately. But yeah, probably it's not really necessary to rush it, but nice to have is like in LTS during like it's out during LTS promotion release.
So in terms of LTS, just for everyone watching this, the LTS date for Node 22 is the 29th of October. The policy for the release working group says that anything in an LTS release has to be on a current release for 2 weeks, which kind of means that it needs to have gone out in Node 22 by the 15th of October. The release plan for Node 22, I think, has 2 releases penciled in. I think one this week and then one in like around that 15th date, might be just before. That is obviously subject to change depending on release or availability. But again, if this isn't Semver major, which that's a whole different discussion anyway. If this is a minor, all it really means once we go into once it goes into LTS is that you might have to wait a bit longer for the thing to land. So I'd rather not rush it, but then if it's ready and we happen to have a release of willing to land that in the next 2 weeks, and do a release, then fine, that can go out and make it into the LTS release. If it doesn't make it, then we just delay it until like the release after that. I'm not really that fussed either way, given it's Semper Minor. And I think, the flag is still there, or at least, it's possible to disable the feature. So as long as we have the escape hatch, I'm less worried about the risk.
So I guess the plan is to get those two patches out, and then the two additional thing that I proposed, one on main and will also need to be on 22, and the other one is targeting the no modules disable thing, should be targeting 22, and we'll just see like whether you'll be there in time. If not, then I guess we can wait. And about the disable thing, the warning disable thing, since it's targeting 22, so it will not be going out in 23 anyway. Do we need to wait for 2 weeks for that as well, or should it just go out there?
Just open the PR on the staging branch. We'll probably just land it, I think.
Sorry, folks, I got a bit lost. Yeah, I got a bit lost. So what we are aiming for?
I think the conclusion is that it will be out in 23, and for the unflagging on 22, we'll need to first get the feature detection out on the main branch and the no modules warning disabling on 22. And if we can, get them out soon enough in 23, then they will make it into 22 when it goes to the LTS promotion. Otherwise, it will not.
But we consider we Semver minor anyway, right? We don't consider as a Semver
it's
major.
minor. Yeah, it's either going out in the end of October or like the next 22 release after the promotion release.
Okay,
so
we expect to have this in a couple of months in the worst case scenario, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds fair.
And also, if it wasn't clear, I think this is specifically about unflagging. So the feature is already there behind a flag. It's just
yes, of course. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments before we move on from this one? Okay, if not, we'll move on to, let's talk about the CI situation. That's number 1614. I think one of the things just to mention is that, Ryan did get the old Mac OS infrastructure back into a state where things are running, and it's added back in. But I don't know if we have anything else specific to chat about this time on that front. And I see that we have one of Pietro Marchini developed a tool to help, investigate some of the Pikey tests. That's great. But I don't know if we have any other thoughts in terms of, how to move that forward in terms of improving the situation there.
I mean, there's a number of issues. The flakiness has just gotten extreme. There's one PR, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, I ended up having to run the CI 19 times in order to get a clean run. Every time it was a different combination of failures. Started putting some effort into fixing it, but it appears there's some larger issue. Like, a lot of the flakes right now are these timeouts, and I guess that it was found that there's this deadlock in the process shutdown that was causing those. But hopefully it'll get better soon once that is resolved. But I just think in general, over the past, I'd say, year, the flakiness has just been horrible. Yeah, just a horrible experience trying to get something landed. Don't have a lot of solutions solutions to suggest other than we just need to spend more time investigating flaky tests. What it ends up seems to happen is that they get reported, investigated a little bit. If we can't identify what the issue is, then it ends up just getting left. And we just need more of an effort to go off and resolve those things. And there are other issues with the tests, and there's other conversations to be had about the tests, but I think if we can just resolve the flakiness issue and get CI to where it is at least regularly yellow, it's not regularly green, that'd be good.
I agree. We need to spend more time. I'm completely out of ideas of how to encourage that, right? Like,
Yep, me too.
We just don't. We like as the way the project runs, we don't force it, right? Like we we continue to take new stuff instead of saying like, nope, we're gonna stop until we fix all the flakes, right? Like that. I'm not saying we should do that, but like that would be an approach to say, okay, let's encourage everybody to fix the flakes because nothing's gonna land until that happens, right? But like in absence of changing our policy on and like taking some sort of more drastic action so that people are encouraged. I don't. I think the other thing we talked about was like, could we get some funding to have somebody work on it? That might work if we can actually get some funding. But absence of that, or finding some champions who say like, hey, I want to lead an effort. I don't know how we get more time spent on investigating the flaky tests, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any ideas to suggest either, so I'm just kind of open to suggestions.
Yeah, I think we kind of have like just throwing out options just to get people thinking and stuff. Like we could say like, well, flaky tests, we just remove them. Like, that's our approach. Somebody can then add back in a test that obviously leads to us potentially missing bugs. Like for example, if a lot of the flaky tests are because of the like a shutdown bug, which is a real bug, we would miss that if we just say we're removing flaky tests. So I don't think that's not a great one. We can say that like we're going to somehow stop forward progress when it gets too flaky. We can try, yeah, like funding is the other one I can think of. Otherwise, like, or we can ignore it, right? Like those are kind of our options.
Funding is the only one that I can think of as being actually capable of producing results. If we just say we're going to stop progress until these things are not flaky, we just won't land things because people still won't fix the flaky tests. And then we've had cases where we couldn't land flaky test fixes because of flaky tests, right? Yeah, I know a few weeks ago I kind of ruffled some feathers with some folks for landing a PR that did exactly that. Marked a bunch of tests flaky and fixes. That PR kept failing because of a different combination of flaky failures over and over and over again. And it was just getting ridiculous. And so it was just like, we need to at least be able to make some progress. So I just went ahead and merged it once it was clear that every failure was a different combination of flaky tests. And we had at least one run where the test passed. There's some combination like the those things where you take a bunch of different photos and process them to get the best photo. Similar kind of thing. So, we just can't have that. I mean, it's we can't, like, if we can't even fix flaky tests because of flaky tests, we've got a problem.
Yeah, I think so. I think when we discussed, or somewhere there was some discussion, we should write up a like what would the statement of work look like? And go from that. So maybe that really is our next step.
Yeah. All right. So that writing up the statement of work, I mean, who would do that? And do we have something similar, like, I mean, do we have a statement of work that was, that, you know, for the security work that we can use as a model?
Yeah, let's see if I can find that. Is that in the sheets?
And just so it's clear for everybody what we're talking about, I mean, that funding, basically asking the foundation to contract somebody to go off and work on those, fixing those flaky tests for a certain period of time.
I don't see it immediately, but I think like I can volunteer to just write a 1 paragraph statement of work, because I don't think that'll take too long. And then we can go from there on that. I don't know that the foundation has like extra money sitting around, but we can start by asking them, and then otherwise we do have a session at the Collaborator Summit talking about funding. And like maybe that factors into there, is like, here's a clear case where we could use that funding, right? If we managed to get some on our own.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, any other comments or thoughts on before we move on from that one? Okay,
Just
go ahead.
sorry, a thought from the foundation side of things. Is there somebody to fund if there was funding? Like, is there a contributor that is fully aware of the testing infrastructure and understands the nature of the flakiness? Are there peoples that, if there was funding, that they could be funded?
I think someone did volunteer the last time we discussed this, and said someone on the TSC, and said they would recuse themselves from any decision making. So, that, I think, was that in an email thread or in Slack? I can't remember. Someone
I
did.
seem to remember that there was a volunteer, so I would answer, I think so. And it's like, it's kind of the chicken and the egg, right? Like, but I think there was at least there's at least one person who's like, hey, I might be interested.
Yeah, and Antoine, as far as I remember, yeah, Raphael mentioned.
Right. I do wonder, I don't know if this was ever discussed, but could we kind of like try some, some sort of marketing to try to motivate folks to contribute in a specific area of the, CI and flaky test, right? Maybe like issuing a bounty, I don't know, or a call, or a larger call for collaborators to help in the specific area. Have we ever talked or
Like,
tried
I think
test?
one of the things that, like, so if we, in my mind, if we had somebody who was like the champion, I really want to push this forward, I think a lot of the things they could do is like, hey, let's see if we can spin up a team, which is like the test team, who's interested in tests, and then you can bring in new collaborators to look at flaky tests and sort of build up some critical mass about that. I think the challenge is, without that champion, it doesn't happen, right? Like, and if we just do the random, like, hey, everybody out there, please come and do it. Sometimes, like, you need, because Ryan's point was like, people need a little bit of context. Otherwise, we may get things. We might get like, I guess I'll flip around, like the positive side. We might get a bunch of PRs, but then who reviews them and make sure that they really fix the flaky test? So we kind of need like some internal capacity to support people fixing things, and then there might even, like, anyway. And same with the bug bounty, like, kind of idea, at least in my mind, is like, I'm not sure if that would motivate the sort of longer term. You might get some PRs, but then you spend just as much time trying to get those PRs into shape as it would be to write them, like investigate them yourself, right? So it's that, yeah, that's a bit on that side.
Yeah, and
One
it's
of the other
more
complicating
like an owner.
factors is some of the tests are only flaky on certain platforms, and not everyone has direct access for development on those platforms. You know, so it's, you know, in some cases, the flakiness is only seen in CI, right? It's hard,
Yeah,
you
it
know.
does. It does complicate things for sure.
Yeah.
But that's where, like, you know, if we had a team and we built up a team with people who regularly contribute, you could say, well, like our policy is we automatically give the people in that team access to the test CI machine so they can log in. And
The policy at the moment is that any collaborator asking for access to one of the CI machines would be approved for being granted access if they opened an issue on build. So it was all tracked as to who had access to what. But build does have a policy that a collaborator would be allowed access to the test machines.
Yeah, I just don't know if people know that. And the thing is, if we leave it up to just kind of organic, let people pick up these issues and resolve them, I don't think we're going to actually make progress. You know, because I mean, just like coordinating these things and getting the knowledge out, you know, and whatever needs to help, I don't think is obvious on how to do that. A team or funding, I think, would go a long way towards helping that. Like if we have somebody dedicated on this for a while, then they can take advantage of those resources. If we have a team, then they can coordinate effort around it. But if it's just left as is, no, we're never going to make progress.
and that's kind of where, like, in that strategic, in the, sorry, the statement of work that I like, the draft I start with, I'll include, like, you know, to provide, to basically be that central point to so, you know, not just work on fixing individual ones, but try and build up some of that critical mass
Yeah.
in a way that continues. Because I agree 100% with what you're saying, is like ad hoc, it's very hard to leverage those kinds of things. Once you hit the certain critical mass, people working together, then it's like somebody new says, well, hey, I want to investigate this. And what about, but it's on this machine. Somebody says, oh, well, here's the process to get access to the machine. But otherwise, ad hoc, like you said, do I know that you can do that? Not necessarily.
Right. And we don't necessarily just want to give access to CI machine to a random new contributor. So
Yeah, that's why Bill's policy is collaborators, yes. Everyone else, there needs to be a more compelling reason or what's the word? Some sort of mitigation or confidence that, you know, this person that's not a collaborator is trusted enough to be given that access. There's some
You
criteria.
know, and we can also try with the, like, let's make it public who's committed to helping fix the tests, right? So, and like, I don't know if there's any benefit to companies saying, like, yeah, we have people on the team who are helping to fix the tests and making that public. Like, not sure if that helps, but like that's one of the things we could do. I guess, you know, that would be along the lines of that helps people convince their employers to let them do that work, then that's good, right?
yeah.
Does the Node project have a concept similar? I'm coming from working on the Drupal project where they had these things they called initiatives, where they would, you know, like this would be something like the test stability initiative, and it would get announced at conferences, and people would be like, "Do you want to participate in the test stability initiative?" And it would all be sort of under an umbrella of a goal or an activity that people could focus on. I'm just curious if there's anything like that in Node.
Yeah,
We
we have strategic initiatives.
Yeah. Which we were just about to go through. So we do have that concept of, like, yeah, here we have a champion and here's an effort to do something which is then, like, documented to some extent. I'm not sure if it's as big a, like, you know, publicity effort as may have been done in what you're suggesting, but
Sure. So this might be a minor strategic initiative or something that, you know, could be.
well, it's more just our strategic initiatives overall. It's like we'll discuss them. So we're gonna we if we have time at the end of the TSC meetings, we'll go through them. But we're not necessarily like issuing blog posts or releases on most of these necessarily to.
Mhm.
But those are all the kinds of things that like we should leverage, and I think we could support, given we had somebody who's like, okay, we've got this problem, I'm going to take ownership of trying to move the sticks, right? And it's just a challenge without that sort of focal to implement those ideas. Any other comments or discussion before I move on to like the strategic initiative review? No. Okay, core promises. Sorry, just looking at who we've got here. So James, anything on the quick side of things?
Yeah, I've actually been able to make progress recently. Landed at another PR that starts to add the internal JavaScript API. I'm actually looking at probably the next big chunk will come in December. I'm actually probably going to take a couple of weeks off day job and actually focus on this for a couple of weeks. Started working with testing against other clients. So Quiche is a Rust-based quick implementation. So I've been testing with that. I've been testing against Curl. Curl has a couple of different ways of using quick. So just, it's just going to be a lot of work, just very incremental over time, but we are making progress. We have the start of a JavaScript API there. So slow but sure.
Excellent. Chenzong, anything on Shadow Realm?
Sorry, the progress is being slow and I have no updates to update this time.
Okay. Joey, anything on the startup snapshot you want us to share?
There's a recent progress to fix the error.stack trace limit installation. And then I found out that the snapshot feature doesn't have its dedicated documentation page. And so far, it seems like it has accumulated enough information in both the CLI.nd and va.nd for the JavaScript API to have like a dedicated page, I think. Otherwise, it will be difficult to find information about all these caveats. So I'll probably just spin up a different doc about the snapshot stuff. And probably I'll do that in another podcast.
Yeah, no, that's good. I did. There has with the various stuff that's gone in, it sounds like it's the right time. And for next 10, I'll say that there is the collaborator survey, which is closed or closing very soon. Like, so if you haven't taken it, please take the collaborator survey if you're a collaborator. The idea is to sort of figure out or find out, get feedback and find out what's challenges or non-challenges for the collaborators. And it's going to be used as input to one of the sessions at the upcoming collaborator summit. And then I think the other thing is some discussion around the funding is one of the sessions we're planning for the collaborator summit. And the survey was complete a while back, and Marco's still planning a blog post on that'll come out at some point as well. And I think that covers the strategic initiatives that we have people here for. So is there anything else that we should chat about before we close out for this week?
I had one thing. Cloudflare has been working with Igalia for the past year on a couple of changes in V8 that are designed to help make it easier for us to work with the new sandbox, the V8 sandbox stuff and pointer compression and all this kind of thing. One of the new APIs that actually just landed and should be appearing, I can't remember exactly which V8 release it is, but it's called an isolate group. The idea is that instead of having a single sandbox per process. Each isolate group can have its own sandbox. And you can create one or more isolates within each group. The hope has been that we could take advantage of that in Node as well. And I'm hoping we can get to a point where we can enable pointer compression by default all the time in the regular build, and actually have it where we can have, you know, multiple sandboxes, you know, potentially one per worker thread, you know, that kind of thing. So there's a number of different things that could be done with this. But I just want to make people aware that this API is it has landed. There's some bug fixes I think that they're working on now. In testing and that kind of thing, but that is up and coming, and will be there. The other thing that we're working on, it's not clear yet whether not clear yet exactly how it's going to work, or and there's still a lot of unanswered questions for it. But it's called, what we're calling it, lightweight isolate clones. Basically, you spin up an isolate and then can actually clone it with a copy on write strategy. So it's not a snapshot. You basically just create an isolate as a zygote, and then you can clone it quickly to spin out multiple copies. My hope is that that's also something that we can take advantage of in Node to, like speed up starts of worker threads, or various other things. So just something to be aware of. As that work lands upstream, I'll try to update folks. But yeah, really hoping that there's some stuff there that we can take advantage of here.
Okay, any other topics we should cover before we close out? Okay, if not, thanks for everybody's time, and we'll see you in GitHub and next time. Bye.
Bye, folks.